Could you speak a little?
Hi, my name is Doug.
Oh, is it
Allie is Jodelle Langdon's chimp that she raised from a baby. Now this chimp was raised with Jodelle, and then she has a compromised, partially retarded brother-in-law who lives with her, Tim. And I mean, he's pretty high function. He can even drive. But he took care of Allie every single day until they moved her to a couple other facilities and ended up at Save the Chips. And he was in with her every single day, feeding her. He hand-bathed her, even as an adult chimp, and brushed her teeth and whatever. She had a cup of coffee every morning with them. That was the routine she expected. When she went into a cage at Connie's the first time, she refused to eat off the floor. She had to eat off of a plate. So again, it just tells you what's the potential. It questions, what can we do with these, any animals, even dogs and cats? What can we do that we don't try to do? How can we argue against research that opens up a door or a venue of understanding to see what that limit is in communicating? And the naysayers who say you can't touch these animals, you gotta let them be chimps, they're not gonna be chimps as we know them in the wild because they're not in the wild. So let's take advantage of them while they're here to learn from them and then give back by being able to communicate and broadening their opportunity to express themselves. And Jodelle was worried that, what do I do in legacy for Allie? I don't want something to happen to me and then someone's gonna grab her and take her. So we sent her down to what we thought was a good facility down at the Sun Coast. And we would go down there. I went down there a couple times with her to see Allie. And one time, Sue went down there and we gave Allie access to a iPod or what? iPad. And through the cage. And they had Savage-Rumbaugh on the other side. And she was enthralled. She was focused. She was sitting there looking and trying to communicate with him. And I think this is a reinforcement for the interspecies internet concept that there's a lot of opportunity there we haven't explored yet. We need to. Then recently at Save the Chips, where Allie has ended up, and she's doing fine. She has a big group and she likes all the boys. She's like the popular. She's got 3 boyfriends and the girls are subordinate to her, but she's the queen. She taught the other chimps, I'm told by the behavioralists there, how to make a bed with blankets, okay? She taught them how to go down and touch the water because they were afraid they're all on islands, and how this was good because she was raised to go in a boat on the Missouri River, and she had been in the water with a protective coat on, so she wasn't afraid of the water. In fact, they're worried that one day the canoe's going to get too close, she's going to jump on and be on the other side. But again, the ability, I feel like Allie's an example of a chimp that has the same level of sophistication that I've seen in Kanzi or any of the bonobos. And it tells me that, we give bonobos this opportunity. I'm not sure we can't give many chimps, especially those that have been raised in captivity that you've seen. The same thing with Tuffy. Tuffy from Wayne Blue's chimp that he raised, literally slept with him for the first 8 years of his life every night. Tuffy was the same way, and they tell me down at Save the Chimps that Tuffy is still the same way. He has the ability to look and create opportunity, I think, and think the next step rather than just eat, clean you, this and that. Now they have the opportunity to think and create their own scenarios and do this or do that. And Allie was great with that. And I have one funny story. There was a chimp that was raised in Missouri, and it's the one that destroyed the lady up in Pennsylvania or someplace. That chimp was born at Connie's place. And the problem there was, in my mind, was that the lady didn't understand what a chimp could do, and she just let boundaries go too far in the situation. So after that, immediately after that, Allie got past Tim, never tried before, but got past him when he was going in and out of the door, and was out on Jodell's property, which was up on top of a mountain, and had thousands of acres with interspersed homes, but it was basically forest. And Jodell freaked out because she was afraid the neighbor was going to shoot Allie. So she says, please come, and I'm about an hour away. So I come there with all my darting equipment, and Allie knows me. She doesn't particularly like me because the situations haven't been great. And so I said, where is she? Well, she's sitting up along the road with Tim, her caretaker, and another person that she's known her whole life, who's kind of an animal guy. And she said, well, they're up there along the road. So I get in Jodell's car, and I'm sitting in the back seat, and she's driving up the slope, and the windows are tinted. So we get up there, and I look out there, and here's Allie sitting between these two guys, I mean, like a picnic, and they're eating yogurt, and they're eating all kinds of stuff, and they're just hanging with her, right? It was the funniest thing. And I think she's more intelligent than these two people, honestly. And so she's having the time of her life, and Jodell rolls her window down and says, hi, Allie. And Allie stands up and starts pant-hooting to her. And then all of a sudden, I said, go ahead and roll the window down. And they roll down the window, and I sit up. She sees me, and she goes, ah! And I dart at her. And instead of running away or attacking, she turns around, grabs the tree, and held on until she was anesthetized. And then we carry her back into the housing. But then, look what this showed me. You know, this animal had every opportunity to hurt somebody, run away, destroy. That wasn't Allie's intent. Allie was out for a picnic. And Connie had an ape that was having problems in birthing. If you remember this. As a veterinarian, even a wildlife or an exotic animal veterinarian, I don't get to do dystocias in chimps, maybe once a lifetime. So I called up a friend of mine who was an Israeli OBGYN. He was about 70 years old. And I said, Yoram, would you help me to do a C-section? And he said, of course I would. So we go to the facility. We did an ultrasound. We anesthetize her, do an ultrasound. You see the baby's backwards, so yes, we have to do this. And I had a friend do the anesthesia, intubation and all, and he and I did the surgery. And everything went great. That baby is now 18 years old, living someplace else. Afterwards, I asked Yoram, I said, well, how was this? And he goes, well, dog, on the inside, very similar. On the outside, very hairy. Tonka is one of the apes I met at Connie's facility. And Tonka was, I don't know the entire history, but was a show chimp and can do crazy things. He likes to kiss. He's the one that sticks his tongue out and wants to kiss you and all this stuff. And he can flip and do all kinds of. But for some reason, I had to sew him up twice. He got in a fight with another adult chimp, and it was pretty dramatic wounds. And I had to anesthetize him and put them back together, and they heal amazingly well. I was like, wow. But in those events, often the animals get more fearful, but in his case, he kind of became more comfortable with me, I guess because he survived those events. And so he's one I still go there, and I'm anxious to see Tonka and get close to him. And, you know, my touching is very protected, but, you know, I let him kiss me or whatever, things like that. And yeah, for me, I don't know what he gets out of it, but I get a lot out of it. And there was another young chimp that I introduced, was privately owned and raised, and wasn't Connie's, but she was keeping him there. I think he was around 7 or 8 when I first met him, and I brought Sue there, and she met him, and we both sat down in the cage with him, and he was completely loved. No sense of threat to me. This chimp didn't know anything about humans other than they were loving and giving, and he wanted to interact constantly. And this lady was so dedicated. She had this interesting home. She had thousands of open acres and in this area. It was just beautiful, but it was just a big open farming area. And she fell in love with chimps. So what she did was she created her entire basement as one cage living space. And she lived in there. Her master bedroom was in there, and her chimp would live with her. And but during the day when she was up and about, he was there upstairs with her. And when he had to go to the bathroom, he wore underpants. And when he went to the bathroom, he'd just go in, pull his underpants, sit in the toilet, and come out. I had another chimp in southern Missouri. The people had a beautiful home, the big swimming pool, and then they had eventually built a facility external to the home that had inside and outside quarters. They had 2 chimps at this time. And I remember for some reason, they wanted to get him neutered. I think they were afraid of him getting too old and too aggressive. So we went up to do that, and he was in the caged area, and I was getting ready to blow dart him, and he got away from them and came crying and screaming to me, and I thought, oh my God, I'm going to get chewed up. I didn't know. And all he did was hug my leg. He just wanted some sense of security. He's the chimp that they taught how to swim, truly swim. And in my experience with chimps, a lot of times they hit the water, they take a big swallow of water, they go down and die. And I've had that experience with one bonobo, and I've heard of several experiences with chimps that lived on islands. But this chimp actually would go down, eat apples, and swim around. That chimp was at Connie's for a while, and now I think is at Save the Chimps. And he swims, and he was sweet as can be. Again, a chimp that had been raised in a human lifestyle, a human family, later introduced to another chimp, did fine. And that's another point of it. Allie, for instance, every time we put her in a new situation, she was the most stable of the interaction compartments, whatever. So if it was another male or whatever, she always knew how to adapt and manage the group or the individuals. So I gotta believe that had something to do with the way she was managed as a human, and the rights she was given, the sense of responsibility she owed, like we do with our kids. And I never saw her abuse it. I've never seen her show any aggression to any other chimps. She's fit immediately, and even when I had her for a short while, we had her at Tuffy, and Tiffany was just a baby, so it was just Tuffy and her. Tuffy was scared to death of her. He'd never seen another chimp. And Allie was no big deal. I'll teach you how to be a chimp. I would say Missouri alone, at one time I had 4, 5, 6. Connie's had, in my relationship, she's had as many as 30 chimps at one time. So I'd say probably at one time I had 40 plus active chimp opportunities that I was participating with. Pretty exceptional. I did look at some positions at 2 formal research facilities, actually 3. One in Southwest Foundation, one in, I think it's Iberia, the Louisiana program, and then one at Holloman Air Force Base. These are all big research facilities. And at one point in my life, there were positions, and I got offers in each of these sites to be the on-site chimp veterinarian. But I don't know, when it came to it, I couldn't do it. There was a limit, I just couldn't. That is prison. Those are prison settings in my mind. So I was at Southwest Foundation, and they had there was a veterinary PhD virologist who imposed HIV, human HIV, into chimps. And now we know that doesn't work. It's more likely to transfer in one of the other versions, in simian AIDS and baboons. But this was a big deal because now we had a model, theoretically a model, for human aids. So they needed a vet, and the guy was a veterinarian, but he didn't practice, and he wanted me to take care of him. And they also, and I looked, he was German, his name was Jörg Eichberg, and they had this area away from the regular chimp group, and it was fenced off, and it said, you know, no entry permitted, and they had these little block houses, and one had hepatitis C chimps, one had HIV chimps, one had this, one had that, measles. And he said, well, Doug, we want you to put a mask on and go and play with these guys every day. Are you nuts? And all I could see was, again, this is horrible, but all I could see was verboten. You know, that's the sign I saw. And I just couldn't accept that opportunity. Although I would have learned, I'm sure. Yeah, it's become such a negative issue that there aren't a lot of vets that are willing to do it or have enough experience to do it. Now some of those people, I guess, are shifting over to the sanctuary operations. And still in all, like when I was visiting Save the Chimps, there was one lady that had gained a lot of experience moving some close to 300 chimps into that setting. So she was very knowledgeable. She was about my age. And then there was a young vet they'd hired who had literally no experience, was just learning. And a lot of that support has come from zoo veterinarians. The other program, the grade 8 facility in Wachula, has a lot of orangs and chimps, and they use a veterinarian from the Lowry Park Zoo. So that's always been kind of the way to do it. But yeah, I'm kind of probably one of the few freelancers that would go someplace and help and do it. So I've moved chimps. Les Cochran had 3 chimps. He's a gentleman in West Plains, 2 males and a female. And he had to move out. One of his baby male had gotten large and they were fighting the 2 males, and he didn't have enough facility for all 3 of them. So he said, well, Doug, let's take it down to a facility in southwest Texas. And in San Antonio, was an area. Now it's a government-managed sanctuary, but at the time it was privately owned. So he said, we'll drive him down. We'll drive him down. So he said, we're going to have to take you. We fitted a cage into the back of a big Suburban, a metal cage, and he's like 6'7". He's a big guy with a big beard. He looks, I call myself mini-me, you know, mini Russ. And his son was big. So they're driving in the front seat. I'm in the back seat. And first he says, well, we're going to have him anesthetized for the 12-hour ride. I said, no, we're not. I've moved these chimps. You put him in, he's going to be excited to travel. And I've traveled with lots of chimps and gorillas and orangs, and they love travel. It's an exploration. So true enough, we got him anesthetized, put him in the cage. As soon as he wakes up, completely settled and exploring. And we're driving, and I remember it was nighttime. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and we were on our way down. And we get stopped by a highway patrol guy. He looks like one of these guys like Barney Fife. He's got everything's perfect, and he's got the hat. And apparently our light on our license plate was out, and he probably thought we were drug dealers going from the border. So he stops us, and they're up in front. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. The chimp is sleeping in the back. I'm in the middle seat. And he sticks his head in with the flashlight. The chimp goes nuts, and he starts screaming. And the guy's like this. I just have this image. He's sitting there with his hand on his pistol, ready to do whatever he has to. And he goes, tell me that's not a dog. And I said, sir, that is not a dog. That's a chimpanzee. And he goes, all righty then, be careful. And he wanted to get out of there as quickly as possible. It was so much fun. One year I was working as the vet at the Fort Worth Zoo. And they had a project to move gorillas here and there. So it was winter. It was crazy. But I took gorillas from our facility, took them to Knoxville, Tennessee, exchanged them out. This is all in a big truck, moving truck. And I had one keeper and myself. And we're driving all around the country with a truck full of gorillas. And it was bizarre. We ended up in Cleveland and all over the place. And, I just thought that was kind of a different experience. And critters did great. It was great. We brought her back to the Fort Zoo. It was a big change out. But I just wondered if we ever got stopped along the road, what that experience would be for people. I find that the concept of getting the chimps out of formal research blocks, again, I agree with. The concept of putting them into these sanctuaries, in those instances in particular, I agree with. It's a better alternative. What I don't accept is that the one thing they're not allowed to do is breed. And, we're talking about sustaining chimps, and yet here we are, we have a very significant population of chimps. Now, I don't know realistically if we'll ever be able to reintroduce chimps to the wild. Maybe we will in limited ways, but in the zoo world, we've tried so many reintroductions, very, very few reintroductions, I don't care what the species is, has ever been successful. It's just too many other factors. First of all, you're taking an animal that's basically been acculturated to, domestication, and then you're going to try and teach him to be another animal, which he isn't. But I don't understand why there couldn't be limited and kind of controlled breeding with genetic management. We have the skills, the support, we can do those things, rather than just letting them burn themselves out. And how can that be letting chimps be chimps when they don't have the one critical part of their life, and that's raising a family and interacting as groups that way? And then there's been contradictions. I don't know, if I should mention it, but, I've been to these facilities, and, Save the Chimps, we get this beautiful expression. There's these 5-acre islands, and, they have all this opportunity to move around, but then you look at it, and we let chimps be chimps. And then I go to the holding facility that they have to come in most cases at night, is no different than, and no better than Connie's place. Still has chip paint on it. It's still a small cage. You go out on the island, they can't allow for the growth and protection of foliage that they would have in the forest because they have to be able to see the animals all the time. So here it is in super hot weather. The chimps are on these platform stands they build out of railroad ties or something. And sure, it's still better than a lot of situations they came out of, but it's not nirvana. It's not the ultimate opportunity. Then they say, let chimps be chimps because we don't get in there and play with them like Connie may have. And yet I see the keepers, because you can't help it, touching the chimps and interacting, and they have favorites, and they do this and they do that, and Allie gets this, and then you see a whole roll around every island building of toys and blankets. And Allie even gets, there's some sponsor there that, I forget, you would know the brand name purses, and she loves purses. She doesn't destroy them, she walks around with purses. And I think they're like $600,000, $700,000 purses. But she gets these and she knows what they're for, and, she walks around and puts things in them and stuff like that. So we're not letting chimps be chimps if we're not letting them have families. And I don't understand. I haven't talked to Jane Goodall about this. I used to know her pretty much in the zoo world because our zoo is sponsoring a lot of her work. But I haven't spoken to her in years, and I've talked to Sue about this. Why is it that Jane is okay with some of these sanctuaries and the lack of breeding? And she just believes so, I guess dogmatically, that you shouldn't have a chimp in a captive setting. So it's better to let them die away than to sustain them in some way and make it better and better. Because we can always improve our sanctuary housing, and we can always make it better. It's just a question of finding the money, and the creativity is there. We can create jungles. We can do a lot of things that we don't get a chance to do. And I just think we're falling short to our mission. And it's very frustrating to me. Now, I'm not going to live long enough. It may not be an issue. Many of these chimps, it's going to take maybe another generation of humans to burn themselves out. But to what end? What did you get out of that? Why aren't we doing formal research at these facilities, behavioral research? It doesn't have to be. Why aren't we doing language research and interacting with them? There's so much more we can get out of these relationships that we're not even pursuing. I haven't heard the argument against that. have you? I mean, in your work, I don't get it.